agus fàilte bhlá orm go trí seascad. In program ag BBC Alba hadal go crea scéalachan an boraníc ingantach an spórs na Halba agus na saite ar fallaf cuideachd second am a cuideachd gan móra in lá. Is mis Iona Ballantyne agus ha mí toilite ra go bhfuil Claire Nelson callrooms in studio. A Claire na àrd-oifigeach Ball-Lìn Alba agus na Baldi Bord Corlachí Boranach agus Cluinnidh Alba an spórs. Ar y program yn och coeth sy'n rhaid ag am yn môr yn dreuchd an an SWPL hyn. Cluinnidh sy'n cuideachd fo che ar y fel Claire Guma iolach, Shasainn ag Ball-Lìn Shasainn agus coaching in Scottish Thistles, Tamsin Greenway. Agus bís na cúra frosbech ar Anna Shackley in rochaiche àrd-oifigeach a half farpish and Iona Ballantyne. Claire, welcome to 360.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on. And I guess, can you just tell us a bit about your career and actually how you got into the job that you do with Scottish Netball?
Oh my goodness, how long have we got? I haven't taken a traditional route to being chief exec of a sports governing body in Scotland. But for me, so my passion with netball started at school. I played it, and as somebody who often struggled a little bit with my own confidence and self-esteem, outwardly quite confident, but inwardly as a teenage girl fighting a lot of battles. When I was on the netball court, I felt that was where I could really be me, and I felt powerful and I loved it. So, but it was a hobby, and it wasn't something I ever thought you could or I would pursue as a career. So I had a career in the hospitality industry, and I then went and worked a little bit in the public sector, and then having had 4 children by the age of 30, I, like many women who need to find balance, started my own business. And a lot of that was kind of marketing, PR, business. And one of my clients that I picked up was actually Netball Scotland, and my predecessor had just taken on the role. And like me, she saw huge vision in it and huge potential, but she sat and said, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to start. And I said, well, look, you know, let's think about what we're projecting. Let's think about professionalizing. What's our brand? What's our business? And so I worked as a consultant, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I took us from a period of kind of this tiny office in Hope Street and writing this new strategy to going to the Commonwealth Games for the first time in Glasgow. And I helped to position it and to put it in front of people's noses, and for those 8 out of 10 women that had played it previously to go, oh yeah, netball, I remember that. And we launched our Bounce Back Legacy programme. We brought investors on board. We renamed the Scottish Thistles and branded them, and we created a product that meant something. And what I realised through that time was, one, I was good at this. I understood women's sport and marketing women's sport, and I took it seriously. And I also saw the potential. You know, we've been labelled minority sport, and if you're not medal winning, you're not commercial, you're not, you know, filling out arenas, then stay in your box. But actually, we represent more than 50% of the population, and women make 86% of all consumer purchasing decisions. And actually, if we can unlock that beast and we can bring the business of sport into women's sport, then we can untap its potential that's sitting there. But working as a consultant was all well and good, and then I joined the board, but it also didn't pay. And going back to those 4 kids, you know, you've got to make some decisions. So I was headhunted to do a global tech role, and I kind of followed that route because it was the right thing to do and it was good for my career, but it wasn't where my heart was and my passion lay. And I always talk about my light bulb moment. I was in Chicago and I was listening to Arianna Huffington speak about Thrive, her new book, Redefining the Metrics of Success. Here was this woman who was just this amazing global leader and was showing how you could lead, but by doing it through putting people first and being innovative. And I just thought that absolutely aligns with who I am and what I believe. And even though I was young and I hadn't been a chief exec, I knew that my predecessor was moving on, and I thought, I have to go and do this. I have to give this a shot and walk the walk. And everything that I said, this is what we should do with women's sport and this is what I feel, I thought, this is your chance. And it was a big decision because, you know, the pay isn't great, and it is a challenge, and it is so hard because women's sport is so far away from where it needs to be that every day is a battle, nothing's handed to you. It doesn't matter the vision you share or the potential that you can show. No one is going to write you a check to make it happen. So I am just over 5 years in post, having, I didn't think it was possible, my hardest year and most challenging year yet, but still as passionate and committed as ever to what I believe women's sport and my sport, netball, can do.
So when the job did come up, did you see it and immediately have plans and think, I can do this?
No, I thought I'm not going to do this, and everyone thought I was going to go for it. In fact, I was reminded recently by someone that they looked me in the eyes at an airport and said, are you going for the chief exec job? And I said, no, because I wasn't. I just thought it's too big, it's too messy, my kids are too young, I've got something really good here. I mean, I was working at senior vice president level with some of the biggest brands in the world. You know, I was sitting doing C-suite negotiations with Coke headquarters in Atlanta and Unilever, and, you know, working with governments. It was a massive, massive, massive job. But I'm an authentic person, and I truly believe that, you know, we have one opportunity on this earth to make a difference, and I knew that I could make a difference here. And it really was that moment in Chicago going, oh God, I'm going to have to do this, and it's going to be tough. And I did not tell my kids, I didn't tell my family. I think my husband was the only person that knew. And I went, but as soon as I put that kind of pen to paper on what could I do here, then it just flowed. And my first line in my interview was, sport is a business, and we need to make women's sport a business too.
And that is so important. And I guess since coming on for the past 5 years, how have you sort of developed that and got Scottish netball to the place that it's at now?
I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, and we are so respected for the success that we've had and the achievements that we've had. We are fast growing. We do have a semi-pro franchise. We've got a globally recognised brand with Sirens. We're constantly pushing the envelope, and we use that platform to drive real meaningful impact in communities. But I actually think this year has been the game-changing year for us in terms of what's next. And, you know, for me, it's all about unlocking potential and being able to realise what that potential is. And then the business bit is critical. And this is where men's sport, particularly, you know, football and rugby, that have got the pro game, the club game at the front, because that's what sport grows behind. They have focused on getting the business piece right, because the business enables the sport. It enables what happens on and off a court, or what goes into schools and communities. And so whilst we've made loads of progress to date, now it's about a gear shift again, and really looking at who we are, what it means to be a governing body, what our brands are, and actually how do we increase our power and profile through visibility, because that then unlocks the business capability which enables the rest of the business to truly grow.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Claire.
My pleasure.
Bhil cóise agus beidir cheachtaí mór an SWPL hen le Ghearran Gaimicin a bheith uabasach fasc nach tóir sin súlreis maithe cuideachd Iona Ballantyne. ceachcain scanil ilmaha, agus mealneach cuideachd go Glasgow City a chaith troias an darna cúrs Jeremy the Champions League na ban and Ivalura Inish Chile. Claire, I mean, this pandemic, it's affected so many people in so many different ways, in so many different sectors. For Scottish netball, how has it affected you?
I mean, it's completely shut down and pretty devastated the business, if I'm going to be honest. You know, we are an indoor team contact sport, so you know that combination together means that we are right at the furthest end of being able to restart. The biggest challenge that we have faced is facility access. So even though our senior members at the moment are still awaiting the government approving a modified game, which is a completely different feel, and it basically minimises the risk through kind of physical proximity of players. But you know, we've created something that works and gets people back into that environment. But our challenge is facility access. So more than 50% of our members train in school sports halls, and the school estate, there's pretty much no access to it. So then you look at sports halls and leisure centres, and I mean, you know, you follow leisure trusts at the moment, they're on their knees, they're trying to survive, they're talking about closures, you've got staff on furlough. It's a difficult place to be. So when they are then opening sports halls, the majority of them are currently being repurposed for fitness activities. So you've got spin bikes and you know, gym mats on the floor. So even with a modified game, we can't get in. So then you look, we're not asset owning. We don't have a netball centre. We'd love one. If anyone would like to help me build one, I've got huge visions for that. And we're not an outdoor sport up here in Scotland. And so we've got nowhere to go. And for me, you know, really trying to think about how do we react to this and find solutions, but actually, how do you redesign the sport to future-proof it against something like this has been the biggest challenge. And there's huge opportunities out there for us, which we're working on. But for our members who rely on this, because sport's a hobby, sport is something you do because you love it, because it makes you feel good for your mental health, your physical well-being. So for our members who have been off the court since we suspended netball back in March, the majority of them have not been able to restart. And of course that's hit our membership. We are 50% down year on year on membership. All national competition has been cancelled. All of our income streams have pretty much ground to a halt. So for a women's sport, that's a huge challenge to face.
Where do you go next? What happens now?
Okay, well, I've just written our new plan. Destination 23 is where we're going, and certainly, you know, we've just completed the first year of our new 4-year cycle, and in it had some similar ambitions to what we're working to now, but we've really had to focus down on actually what does our sport need to do and what does it need to look like. There's nothing like a crisis like this to come and completely blindside you, to make you look at, okay, what works, what do we have? You know, staff and people has been our greatest asset through this. What's the opportunity? What do we need to do differently? So we've really focused on quite a meaty plan that's looking at participation growth. There's a facility strategy in there. A lot of it sits behind how do we professionalise our sport so that we can achieve our on-court success as well, because that success on court breeds off court, and really looking at Sirens, making them the #1 women's sports and lifestyle brand in Scotland.
The thing with netball in Scotland is that it's across so many different age ranges. There's so many girls who play at school, primary school, secondary school, university and onwards. I mean, during this pandemic, like you say, they haven't played since March. How do you keep everyone engaged and willing to play? Yeah, well, the fact is that, you know, we realised quite early on that getting back to playing was going to be a challenge, but we are a member-led and a people-focused organisation, so we very quickly went into how do we make sure that every single one of our members gets through this okay, because within days of us shutting down the sport, you know, we had received word that young members had been suicidal. So for us, the mental health of our members was critical. Of course, I mean, we've got walking netballers in there as well. So that social isolation, that loneliness piece has been a huge factor. So
we almost didn't think about netball and the game for a while. We thought about how do we let people know that we're here, and we offered financial advice, we offered mental health support, we sent postcards to our walking netballers, we did a lot of digital engagement, we put on so many masterclasses, we did camps for young people. I think we've all shown that we can pretty much do anything digitally in this day and age, and we don't need to drive and turn up and physically be somewhere to feel connected. But for us, it was really just, in netball, on court you say here if you need. It's an age-old thing, and actually that translated so well off the court, and we made sure that we were here if our members needed us.
Wow, and it does just show how important sport is, doesn't it?
We talk about the power of and how do you harness that passion and power of sport and what it means, and you know, the recent Scotland win showed that, how in the bleakest of times you can just for a minute feel really good and connected to something. I've always said that we're more than just a sport, and we have been using Changing the Game hashtag for 5 years because that meant so much to us. And actually, you know, one of our first team meetings, when I read an email from a member who was struggling, and we all got teary on that call, I said, now more than ever, this is about us being here for people, and how do we use our sport and our platform to connect people and to stay true to our values of connectivity. Part of our plan moving forward is how do we do that on a bigger scale? How do we reach those that are inactive, marginalised, and particularly when you come to women and girls, self-esteem is at an all-time low, physical activity levels are at an all-time low. Well, if not everyone wants to play netball, that's okay, but how can we do more through our platform?
Brilliant, thank you. We will be hearing more from you shortly, Claire. Hai dyna diachanach a bhí gol dreuchd gúnluai an chesmi an galar mód. Ach sin ddíreach a rain Tamsin Greenway in uragavi harish mar coach a skip a Ball-Lìn na Scottish Thistles. Ha sin ar a bhí briúnri Tamsin gys fein a mach me gain.
Ghearran an dríoch Cluiche soirbheas fàilte bidh, but dyna'n rud gyma taringach mi gain coaching the Tamsin Greenway.
The coaching became like a bit of a natural progression. It's kind of something I fell into. I absolutely loved that aspect of the game. I think as a player, I was always a bit of a leader. Probably, you know, I went on to captain sides, and it was always the part that interested me the most. So an opportunity came up to play a coach at Surrey Storm. Back in the Super League in 2012, and I put my hand up and said I can do this, and that was that really. The rest was history. And I obviously had that experience for a few seasons at Storm before I headed off and set up the new club at Wasps, and then, you know, having won Super League, I think it's 4 times in a row, I sort of said, right, I need a little bit of a break. I wanted to see the next challenge, and then the amazing opportunity came up in Scotland.
Ha Tamsin affecting a dríoch an na dá fáist, a Cluiche agus a coaching, rud hu corm ye an urdas on the Ball-Lìn Alba.
In the last 20 years, the change, the growth of the game has been huge, from everything on the court to off the court. So on the court in terms of the level of play, the fitness, the technicalities, the skill, the tactical stuff that's been introduced into the game has been huge. And off the court, the brand of the sport has been immense in terms of the commercial influence we have now, everything down to fan engagement, to live games on Sky. You know, I saw all that transition. My first ever Super Cup final back in 2004 was in front of 50 people in a Blackpool sports hall. And, you know, fast forward to my last ever Super League final with Wasps in front of 6,000 sellout at the Copper Box live on Sky. You know, it doesn't even compare. So I think it's been a real roller coaster of a ride, but an amazing journey to be part of and to see those changes.
A lorach an Ghearran, van corm dríoch Prìomh Chòidse in the h-Alba Thistles, Rova legal as follow the Tamsin.
I'd sort of tick the box domestically. I'd played across 3 different teams. I coached at 2 different ones, and I'd sort of gone, right, what is this next challenge? What does that look like? And, you know, to coach internationally is the dream, isn't it? It's the cream of the crop to actually get to that level. You know, and it was sort of, for me at that time, one door closed, another one open. I got the call from Claire Nelson and from Karen Atkinson, both at Scotland, and sort of said, do you want to talk? And I went, yeah, I do. And, you know, it was a bigger picture as well, because not only do I get the international experience, I get to work with the quality the quality people, and those two have been amazing for me. I think a lot of the time when you get to that level and you get to work with people, it's about the right fit, and they were definitely the right fit for me in terms of what they want to achieve off the court and on the court with Thistles, and the challenge they've given me, which is amazing.
Háisíigh Tamsin na dríoch an sa Ghearran. Díadach nuair de ran COVID a céalcha gur cuideachd féamh miasan mas tá hacadí ceart dus an scipe.
I got to meet them a couple of weeks ago, which is really nice because I said it's been like the longest introduction in history, I think. The plan was to actually go up in March just as COVID and lockdown started to happen, and I was a bit sort of dubious because I'm based down south in England, so it was like I was going to have to fly up. So we sort of said, you know what, we'll leave it a few weeks and we'll come up, and those few weeks turned into a few months, and the rest is history, as everybody knows. So I inherited a squad of 31 players. I've been being totally honest, I only knew sort of probably 5 or 6 of them by actual playing and face and name. So it's been really interesting getting to know people. We've been adapting. We've had Zoom calls and we've had online sessions, and they've been sending me videos on WhatsApp all across the summer. So we've been able to implement some programs, but it's nothing like actually getting to meet them, seeing how they all mesh together, and selecting the squad that I want moving forward. So fingers crossed over the next few weeks that will start to change again, and as things are starting to move slowly, you know, we're looking at getting that squad picked for moving forward.
A COVID is back in a hotship Ball-Lìn. Le príomhacha sé bhí déanú cuideachd bhfuil spár sábhailte go leor na dhí Cluinnidh chun na nábis.
It's had a huge impact on the sport. You know, everybody behind the scenes has been working tirelessly to make sure things are happening. I think there's the full logistics in terms of planning has become impossible, because every time you take 1 step forward, you take 2 steps back. You know, we talk about the international calendar. We've not been able to put anything in place. The last time I think the Thistles played was after the 2019 World Cup. You know, so it's a huge amount of time. We'd have had 2 or 3 internationals at this point already in 2020. So things like the planning has been hard. Things like trying to find facilities and space, and Thistles have done a great campaign in trying to connect with outside sources and businesses and companies and anybody that has local space that we can put netball courts on, and this is a big push. You know, moving forward we're going to need more areas that we can play the sport on. So there's been some challenges, and it will continue, and of course revenue is the huge thing. There's been a big push for members to re-sign, and that's something I've done, hands up. I've signed myself up, I've signed my daughter up. We're all members, because it's really important that at some point sport will get back to normal, and life will return to normal, and so you want to make sure that things like netball are still there when it does happen.
Ha Tamsin has the gúlacha gan scipe, I gceann na dúlainn le targad in an bialú gus an átas is mór a dhéanú.
I think we had discussions about, you know, rankings and where we want to sit in the world. I think the biggest thing for me is matching the ranking that Scotland have had with the level of competition that they play. So, you know, going into a World Cup, if you're ranked in that top 10, which is incredible, you know, making sure you finish in that position coming out, or not better, if not better. And I think that's what's really important, is that it's not just sort of words on a paper, but actually when you come up against some of those African and Caribbean nations, that you can perform in the big arenas. And so, you know, pulling together the right calendar and making sure players get plenty of opportunities against the different styles, and that you don't go into those competitions blind, is really important. Also sort of providing a new culture for the team as well. I've been lucky enough to come through the changes at England, where we used to get smashed by Australia and New Zealand by 40 goals. So it's the first time we ever beat them in 25 years. And then to see England go on and actually win in big competition. So I think there's elements of that I want to bring together, that nothing is unattainable. It's just about changing mindsets and changing cultures.
Claire, it's so clear that Tamsin is so dedicated to netball and really wants to drive the sport forward. Is that what drove you to taking her into Netball Scotland?
Absolutely. There's so many reasons why I wanted Tamsin to come and take on the baton from Gail Parata, who had done a huge job with us, taking us from 14th to 8th in the world, and really putting us on the international map as a serious contender. But as Tamsin said there, you know, we went into the World Cup 7th in the world, but then we didn't even finish in the top 10, and we hadn't quite achieved our targets when it mattered at world competition. So we really were looking at what's next, because getting to 8th, although that feels like a huge struggle and a huge journey, actually breaking into that top 6 and really being a top a consistently top netballing nation, this is where the hard work starts. So what I needed was to not only have somebody who is a tactical specialist, which she is. I mean, she's the Sky pundit. She's the face of netball in the UK. Globally, she's recognised. She's so tactically smart. She also inspires, and she talks there about the results that she'd had with her Super League franchises. You know, Wasps 2 wins, Storm 2 wins. But for me, it was actually bringing a different mindset and culture. I didn't want to be the underdogs who did well. And it's such a Scottish thing, and I love it. Win, lose or draw, we come out and we celebrate. But I look at the infrastructure that we have, the vision and potential that we have as a netballing nation and as an organisation. Then you look at some of the talent coming through. 6'4" Emma Barry, 18 years old, huge shooting percentage, really exciting. And I just thought, I need to change the mentality that we can win. And if this is then underpinned by a really strong performance programme and infrastructure, which Ghearran Atkinson is building and developing through Sirens, then actually when we go to the World Cup in South Africa in 23, and we will go, we will qualify and we will be there. I also, you know, we have to go in there and we have to finish in the top 8, and then we need to look at start pushing beyond that. So as Tamsin said, we're really aligned, and for me it was also, she just gets what we're trying to do as the brand of netball and how to present it and how to position it and what it looks and feels like. So for me, she was just the natural fit, and I just wish she could have got a hands on the team earlier. I was dying to see her in action. I was dying to see the team in action, but we've had to cancel all of our internationals in 2020.
I know, well, what a time to join the team. It's so difficult. But
I know.
If we look at the powerhouses in netball, we look at Australia, New Zealand, England coming through. What are they doing differently?
Well, first of all, they're professional, and that's where we need to go. And you know, you had Emily Nicol, one of our athletes, on a few weeks ago. She was talking about that, and it's certainly something that I am trying to work on, is how do we move to us being able to at least offer, because there should still be a choice. If you want to study, if you want to work, if you want to pursue other things, that's fine. But if you want to hone your craft and be a professional netballer and earn a good living and have a good support system around that, then we need to be able to do that, particularly in the run up to world events. You know, when you've got a World Cup or a Commonwealth Games coming up, you need to be able to dedicate yourself to training and preparing for that. So, you know, for me, we need to be able to look at how we move ourselves there. But actually, for us being able to improve on our infrastructure and our training program, using the Super League, building a better competition structure that feeds into our international teams, and using the insight and the inspiration that our coaches like Tamsin and Ghearran Atkinson bring, I'm pretty confident we're going to see those results soon.
Well, you did mention the World Cup in 2023. Before then, we've got the Commonwealth Games 2022. Is that a realistic goal then for Scotland to medal?
I mean, not to medal. I mean, you never know. I just caught myself there. I say, don't have limiting beliefs, but I mean, it's probably lofty. I think if we can go, and the language I used post the World Cup 2019 is, I said, I never wanted us to go into a competition and perform under our capability and potential again. If we go all out and do the best we can, and you leave everything on court and you finish where you do, then you go, okay, then we've got something to work on and we've done our best. But I think we've all looked at our team and the players that we've got, and I think we feel we can do better than we have done recently. So for me, getting in that top 8 is a very serious target. In World Netball, the top 5 or 6 are really the ones you want to go after. And as Tamsin said there, you know, the African nations, Malawi, Uganda, sit above us at 6th, 7th. They're getting investment by their government. They have a huge talent pool. And winning games to them means literally life or death. It's life-changing to them. So they're real difficult contenders to go up against, but that's where we need to be looking, being able to truly challenge those top 6 teams.
Brilliant, thank you. Stochen chael sibh chuideachd sin has dar an enam Anna Shackley, a chair Ball-Lìn rochaiche bruidhinn. A sé a henam acúri cúnan professionte colrí engine skipping at smoyes and Renorpe, Hansel a-amasan.
Díadach ans na blianach in mégéideach, bhaith rochaiche alpanach Anna Shackley a comas profession tussen spors, with the gag che a han nuich blindíach like Ghearran gamat dydydd.
I kind of always thought that I would just go off to uni, but last year I improved massively, and then I thought I could actually make it as a career in cycling. I had to decide between coming on the British cycling programme, where I had to move down to Manchester for, or going off to uni, and I decided to defer my uni place and come down here, and then this year I've had to decline my uni offer and fully commit to becoming a professional athlete, which I'm quite excited by.
As Joey Coon and profession to Aing, ha Anna iniste farpach and they could get a dunya a share on some dool, root nach roi a viv and dool a hachrug.
It was a bit surreal at World Champs, like racing people that I've kind of seen on TV and follow on Instagram, and I'm in the bunch with them. But I'm looking forward to racing next year and seeing what I can do.
Don roiche og, ha seljar gurvillen immersteichige díadach atáisigach, le na gemichen Olympicach agus na gemichen cuideachd father, gan jou bachgach sa bí it na súnigi Ghearran.
In 2022 Commonwealth Games, I would really like to get selected for that and represent Scotland. Olympics 2024 would be a good, I'd love to go there, but it just depends on how many places we qualify, and I don't like it to get my hopes up, but I'd always want to be selected for that.
Claire, it's so nice to hear and see Anna's story, because she is so humble, but she's making such a huge impact in her sport.
Yeah, do you know, somebody like her is so powerful and she won't realise it, but we talk about visibility for women's sport and that whole you can't be what you can't see. And for her, who looks so young and is talking about going to uni, and then here she is training to compete and you know, get to the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. That's really inspiring for young women, young boys as well, but it makes it attainable. It makes it something that they can see themselves in, and I think she's done the right thing. You know, it's a big decision, and I'm sure her parents were thinking, you know, pursue sport, is there a future in that, go to uni, but actually you can go to uni at any point, and if you've got the opportunity that she has, she's absolutely right to seize it with both hands, and I can't wait to see her at Birmingham, because I'm sure she'll make it there.
And that's the thing, because at this age, at such a young age, you do often only have one chance for these things.
I know, you know, Catherine Granger is our patron, and she talks about being an athlete is not about sacrifice, it's about choice and opportunity. And she says if you get the opportunity to go and represent your country and to go and compete at world events, then choose that, because it really is often a once in a lifetime opportunity. Not that you only do it once, but actually if you pull yourself out that system, it's really hard to get back into it. So and it's difficult for women and for females, because we're not really professional. A lot of these sports aren't professional, so then you are thinking about the practicalities of survival and, you know, who's going to support you financially. But it's such a special thing to be in those few percent, to really go and do that and have that honour, one that I'll never understand or get to experience. And so, you know, we have to do everything we can to be able to encourage and support our young people to follow these dreams and ambitions.
Absolutely, because it is just so special. But we are coming to the end of 2020. It's been a very different year for so many, for Netball Scotland, and for you, what do you hope 2021 brings?
A vaccine that works. Do you know, there's so much of our plan that I've just presented to my team and they're all working on, that I said, you know, even if we push a button and we can go back to getting back to playing in our halls, and you know, the restrictions go away, we won't deviate from this plan, because I believe it's the right one for our sport. And, you know, everything that we're focusing on, this growth and visibility and being able to increase access to opportunities and using our platform to reach more and do more, that isn't at the expense of the development of our sport, in our ambitions internationally, in the Super League, or for our members who play here in their clubs across the country. But I think take what I do and, you know, my sport out of it. I'm missing human connection. I'm missing, you know, the fact that you could give people a hug, or you can smile, or, you know, you're not looking at somebody who is within a metre of you like they are carrying the plague. And that fear and that hostility kind of, there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of heaviness, there's a lot of worry, there's a lot of parents who don't know how they're going to feed their kids, and it's just been hard. And my biggest hope for 21 is that it can become lighter, and that we can just find fun and love and friendship. And I hope to goodness that those who have lost their jobs are supported, and that we can just get back to our nation being the great nation that it is, because we are so good at looking after one another and supporting one another, and that's what makes Scotland great. So that's what we need, and we need that back sooner rather than later.
And back play netball. And
netball, we'll be here, we'll have more opportunities for it. Definitely Super League is a huge focus for us, and we've got big plans on what that looks like. I think it's going to be our biggest league ever, but it's going to look and feel a little bit differently. And yeah, that will be our shop window to everything else we're doing.
Great, well, we look forward to that.
Thank you.
Well, sin air som program eile, ma hang voor do Claire is aan de callroom sin studio. Fit is ever lentil gach shachkin ar YouTube, mar sin jan keen shachkin een chef gewelle kortevrief, gambishif garlentil agus nach calcium programs and B. Cynnig chi gyda sio am program acifse, mar sin sgil fy neog fat is farsing agus cym y bod y fy coed, bod ac i spores fawr anoch na halbe, mar sin leif yn dras.